Today, Michigan's Attorney General Dana Nessel said she is willing and able to step in to figure out how such an appalling act of violence could happen at Oxford High. We spoke with her about the help she is readily offering Oxford community schools.
We, provide a wide-ranging report where we try to find out how this happened, why this happened, and what we need to do to make sure it never happens again.
Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel tweeting Sunday that her attorneys and special agents are uniquely qualified to look into the tragic events leading up to and surrounding the deadly shooting at Oxford High, offering to perform the investigation now that the district superintendent has asked for a third-party review of what happened.
As tragic as this set of circumstances is, couldn't we all benefit across the state from finding out what went wrong?
Nessel adding that her office will be fully independent and non-biased and would produce an extensive report at the end of the investigation.
I think if people really want to trust this investigation and to know that it's comprehensive and to know that we've covered all the bases in terms of making a determination of what led up to the shooting and what happened during it, and how we can best work together to make sure that nothing like this ever happens again, it really should be our department that's handling this.
The most obvious impression question is, did the school accept your offer? Did the district accept your offer to investigate?
Not so far, but we made the offer yesterday. And when I asked my chief deputy to reach out, was when I saw that they were seeking a third-party review. And, we had been considering this anyway, quite candidly.
And what's the jurisprudence here in terms of your ability to go in if the school district says we don't want you there? Do you plan to go in anyway and investigate?
So, obviously I have statewide jurisdiction. I can go into any county in the state. I can go into any school in the state and perform this kind of investigation. We can get search warrants. We can issue investigatory subpoenas. So there are things we can do if we have to, but we prefer that not be the case. And honestly, we are hopeful that the people who run the Oxford School District care deeply about these kids and will want to see answers to the questions that these kids have and that their parents have.
If it comes to that, are you going to go in and investigate?
Well, we'll see what happens. Stay tuned.
You did mention criminal culpability and civil liability, and some could assume that means you think there could be other criminal liability or civil culpability here on the part of the school or the parents, additional civil culpability. Is there any?
I don't have the information to answer that question right now, and I think only a proper investigation will reveal the answer.
And AG Nessel says she supports the Oakland County prosecutor's decision to charge the parents of the 15-year-old shooting suspect. And as we told you at the top of the newscast, Attorney General Dana Nessel has made public her desire to investigate the Oxford shooting and her desire to see a child gun access prevention law or safe storage law. I asked the AG if there's political appetite for that when laws like this have been introduced in the Michigan legislature before.
I cannot explain why anybody would have a problem with a law that simply says that if you own firearms and you live in a home where children are present, that those firearms need to be safely stored and secured. I know that we've cultivated a bit of a gun culture here in the state of Michigan, but shouldn't we put our children first? Is it too much to ask for people to safely secure their weapons so that their children don't have unfettered access to them? I think it's so important that, we send a clear message here that we have to stop fetishizing our guns. We can't treat them like they're toys. They're not. This isn't the same as getting your kid an Xbox or a baseball glove. These are deadly weapons.
How would you enforce something like this proactively to ensure that gun owners are in fact storing their firearms properly?
But we have all kinds of circumstances where the police or other members of law enforcement can be made aware that there's something happening in a home that creates a safety issue for a child. I mean, we've been doing this for years. It's not a matter of police going house to house trying to find out what's happening in each home, but if law enforcement receives information, they can certainly at least contact a firearm owner that also has a child in the home and say, hey, are you safely securing your weapon? here's how you can get a gun lock. You know, it's against the law. But it's so much easier if I, as a law enforcement official, say, you have to do this instead of this is recommended.
Homeland Security did do an assessment in 2019 and found that guns came from the home of a parent or a close relative in 76% of school attacks where there was a firearm that was used. And about half of those cases, the firearm was deemed to be accessible. So it does appear that the facts are on your side here. But I have to return to this question of political reality. Is this something that you think can pass the legislature here in Michigan?
Well, hope springs eternal. And just because we haven't had success in the past doesn't mean we stop trying to make progress.
General Dana Nessel also says that if her office does investigate what happened at Oxford High, it's possible there could be legislative or policy recommendations that come out of that. 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter for each of Ethan Crumbley's parents. And there seems to be some precedent here in the state, People versus Head, in which Michigan Court of Appeals held that a man could be responsible there for involuntary manslaughter because his gun was accessible and there was a fatality there. So it seems as though there does seem to be some precedent for that here in Michigan. Do you think it was the right call by the prosecutor?
I absolutely support Prosecutor McDonald in levying those charges. It will be obviously up to her and her office to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. But, you know, if she can show that there is a nexus between the death of these 4 young people and, of course, the attempted murder of all the other additional people, and she can show that the parents' conduct was so reckless as to demonstrate a substantial lack of concern for whether or not an injury resulted because of their conduct, because of their behavior, because of what they did, then absolutely, I think that those parents should have been charged. And if the evidence is sufficient and the jury finds that they have committed those offenses beyond a reasonable doubt, then they deserve to be convicted.
And what's the jurisprudence here in terms of your ability to go in if the school district says we don't want you there? Do you plan to go in anyway and investigate?
So, you know, obviously I have statewide jurisdiction. I can go into any county in the state. I can go into any school in the state and perform this kind of investigation. But here's what I plan to do. Firstly, I want to meet with the parents. So I'm going to sit down with as many parents from the Oxford community schools as will talk to me to get, you know, a sense of what they would like to see my department do. And then I'm waiting to see, of course, what cooperation I'll get from the superintendent, from the Board of Education, and see what their position is. Obviously, more cooperation is always better for this kind of investigation, but we do have investigatory tools at our disposal that a private law firm or a private security firm wouldn't have, right? We can get search warrants. We can issue investigatory subpoenas. So there are things we can do if we have to, but we'd prefer that not be the case. And honestly, you know, we are hopeful that the people who run the Oxford School District care deeply about these kids and will want to see answers to the questions that these kids have and that their parents have. And the questions that people all over the state and really all over the United States right now are asking. So it's really a matter of just doing anything that we can to provide some measure of security for parents and for students so that people feel safe sending their kids into the classroom again.